From 1964, The Time Travelers. Preston Foster, Philip Carey, Mary Anders, and Star Trek's own John Hoyt. John Hoyt played Chief Medical Officer Dr. Phil Boyce on the original Captain Pike USS Enterprise from the original pilot Star Trek The Cage. He was also a regular staple in many movies and television shows through the 1980s. While it is very much agreeable to view classic science fiction, some is, of course, of a superior quality to others. There are many science fiction movies of the early era, black and white and color alike, that are very tedious and sometimes difficult to watch. It pleases me to say that Time Travelers is not one of those. In fact, I was very surprised at how well put together it was, how forward-thinking, and how well it has held up all the way since 1964. A team of 4 researchers are developing a time portal to be able to see across time, which ultimately proves to be a portal that allows them to pass through time. They go to the distant future of the 2070s after nuclear Armageddon has laid waste to the planet Earth. In that respect, it begins seemingly, though well done, sort of meeting our expectations of a lot of other science fiction. They travel to a post-apocalyptic future and see how bad things have become with irradiated mutants and a small group of human survivors who are making plans for the future. What really begins to jump out as unique is that those humans in the future are planning to abandon the planet altogether. A multi-generational starship is being constructed. They will journey to the distant star, nearest star, Alpha Centauri, where they have isolated the 4th planet in the system as being Earth-like and habitable. They have androids that are going to help prepare the ship, maintain their supplies, grow their plants while they're in suspended animation. It seems as if the movie goes from a time travel movie to an escaping a dead planet movie to build a new future, which is an interesting theme at the time and really still interesting that they overlapped. But right when you're expecting that now this is where it's going to go, they determine that they can't take the people from our time who have traveled there with them, who have no means to get back to their own time, by the way. And in fact, of course, in a time loop fashion, they have proof that going back to warn people will not work, because otherwise they wouldn't have ended up there to begin with. They then begin feverishly trying to reconstruct the portal to find some way to travel back through time, or at least choose somewhere else, since they cannot accompany the crew on the starship. The mutants then attack, and there's a whole subplot that takes place where the mutants have been spying on what they're doing with their starship from the get-go, watching from the crater rim, knowing there were supplies on board and looking for a time to strike. Though primitive, they are intelligent. They are human-like, being related to us. The ensuing attack ends up destroying the ship and the future of humanity that these folk were planning on. And then our time travelers then, with some of the remaining survivors of the future, go through the time portal, which is reasonably well done set of special effects, like some of the other effects of the future involving lights and touch panels and other things that we would expect in our time, but were very much ahead of their time then. They construct the portal, they open the portal, they manage to escape into what was their present at the beginning, and then they all live happily ever after. Well, no. It continues down this road of unexpected science fiction things happening that were quite complex for the time period especially. They arrive at the present to find themselves still there, frozen in time, realizing that they have arrived before they had departed, and that everything is now frozen because they might be outside of time, space, in some sort of limbo. By careful observation, they realize that the people that themselves in the past are not frozen, but rather are moving at an infinitesimally slower speed than they are, which means that within a few moments they will age to death, literally in this advanced hyper state of time passage existence. Not unlike some later episodes of Star Trek, by the way, but very surprising for this movie in 1964. They do figure out that they have one other alternative, and that is to use the time portal that exists in the past that they're building. Though while the controls are near frozen in this super slow, hyper slow state, they realize that it will be taking them hundreds of thousands of years into the future, not just to the century or so further past the nuclear Armageddon. They have nothing else to lose. Staying where they are means dying in a few moments, or they can go through the passage. They go through the passage, and fortunately, blessedly for them, they arrive, of course, at a happy ending. Hundreds of thousands of years in the future, we see them wandering off into an Earth that now has lush foliage and life again in the distant future. What happens after that, we don't know. Who can say? However, again, well ahead of its time, solidly science fiction, we get the time loop repeated near the end of the movie. We get to see how themselves in their present that were left when they went to the distant future do move and open the portal and go to the 2070s and find the mutant post-radiation society, and the story repeats, and then they end up coming back and they end up back, and then it keeps fast forwarding until this confusing mess of they are trapped in this infinite loop, living it over and over and over again. They will always be going to the future, coming back and going to the further future in this perpetual cycle. Again, it's very well done. It's well thought through and well presented. Very worthy of a good science fiction remake at any time with current technology. But for 1964, it really stands out at a time when many old black and white movies up to color were being made of moon men and other things that are outrageously outdated now. The Time Travelers holds up very well as a solid science fiction story to this day. Watch it, enjoy it, love it, live long and prosper.